you think of fundraising and it's often in the vein of children and all that. But when you think of the idea that people all the time are seeing needs and creating solutions to fund those solutions, and then you look at our Congress and our president, and, it's the exact same thing with just a whole lot more zeros. How does the money come in? How does the money go out? The Washington, D.C. trip costs, I think it's like $1,200 a person or something like that. And I'm going with my son. It's 2 nights. We're flying out super early, I think on a Wednesday, and we're flying home in the evening on a Friday. It's going to be a whirlwind trip. It includes our food, transportation for flying, not riding a bus, which I was so grateful for. But it costs that amount of money. If we don't raise that amount of money, it has to come from somewhere. There's no this is the best we could do. We spent more than we have, and we'll just make the 7th graders pay for it next year.
Just print it.
No, we'll just make the kindergartners pay for that when it comes time for them to take their 8th grade trip. It's a teeny tiny number compared to what Congress is spending on any given day. But people do understand the concepts of spending, saving, working hard to sell extra pizzas to make sure that you meet your obligation. And the understanding that I have, if my son and myself, but if my son doesn't raise enough money to cover the cost of the trip, I will have to pay for it. That bill will come due, and I will have to pay for it. Is it too simple to say that our legislature just doesn't have to play by the same rules?
No, because they don't. I mean, when they have the power to basically borrow unlimited from who knows what nation or print whatever they want, there is no check on that unless people say there has to be. There are a lot of people in this country who want there to be, but there needs to be just a little bit more for us to get that done.
I always think to myself about, how do you make the message actually cut through? Because when it becomes when it's election time again and people are campaigning, there's so much noise, and then there's the red sign and the blue sign, and it doesn't even really matter what the name on the sign is. You're voting for one or the other. Does the Democrat Party today stand for what the Democrat Party of your parents' generation stood for? Does the Republican Party today stand for what the Republican Party of your parents' generation stood for? I put up on our Facebook page a post on President's Day, who's your favorite president? And so many people were putting Ronald Reagan, which is a perfectly good answer. And then a lot of other people were putting Donald Trump. But I don't know where Ronald Reagan fits into the Republican Party today. I don't know on the spectrum where Ronald Reagan, because he had it wasn't so much policy as it was method and process and delivery and resolve. Would Ronald Reagan have been flexible on some policies that we have no flexibility on in the Republican Party right now? If you pulled Ronald Reagan out of the 80s and put him into the 2020s, would we go, he's a rhino? I don't think so, because he had resolve. Because you felt like he stood for you and what you believed in. When the government shows up saying they're here to help, it's like, what was Joe Biden's phrase? You know the thing.
You know the thing.
You know the thing. We don't, I feel like we measure our politicians and judge our politicians by the millisecond that passes. But the big picture, when you step back, it was like what I was talking about yesterday about relationships that people are losing right now all over Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is going to take up a maximum of maybe 12 years of your life. The 4 years he was the president, the 4 years he wasn't the president, the 4 years that he is the president. And then after that, there has to be something else. And relationships are being broken right now over this one individual person. And it doesn't feel like it's over substance. It feels like it's over just endless emotion. And, I'm somebody who looks at what Donald Trump stands for, and I think that his policies are clear winners across the board. But it's hard for me to think of somebody who hates Donald Trump that wants to sit down and listen to me talk about Donald Trump's policies. None of his policies even matter. They're willing to elect somebody who would be punitive to their own personal lot in life Because, they say things like Donald Trump, all he does is spew lies. That all he does is mislead or lie or whatever it is. I mean, the hatred is so beyond a political matter. It's a religious matter. It's a situation that I don't relate to and I don't really understand how to respond to. And my thought process has been it's not worthy of response. Listen to this political commentator.
The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalists is very different, is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God.
So, Heidi, I gotta go look at your phonetical. Do you remember what it was? Presbola from Politico separates the wheat from the chaff, the Christian from the Christian nationalists, and says with a tone of outrage to her voice, these Christian nationalists believe that their rights come from God. Is the part on here where she says not some government?
As Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God.
We the people of the United States. I mean, you can go and quickly see exactly where it says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, I think that there are people who are going to listen to this and go, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. She's talking about Christian nationalists thinking their rights come from God. The part here that I want to key in on for people who see this and become excessively outraged, maybe from our side of the aisle, but like almost emotionally uncontainable at the audacity of someone to say that these Christian nationalists, they actually believe that their rights come from God, even though I can just show you right here, verbatim, endowed by their creator. Don't ever forget that what she believes is also what we believe. Her religion is government. The idea that God gives us our rights is a specific separator of who you are as an intrinsic human person, to understand that your rights come from somewhere that makes it so government entities cannot take them away. Because if Congress gives you your rights, if the government gives you your rights, if freaking Joe Biden gives you your rights, then they are all in a position to remove those rights. And in fact, in this country, they're not, because we do acknowledge that our rights are endowed by our creator. Now, I'm a Lutheran. I mean, all three of us in here, we're Christians. All three of us are different denominations of Christian, and we could probably get into the weeds about theology and liturgy and how you identify creator and so on and so forth. And you listening right now might have a very vague grasp on Christianity. You might be dabbling in it. You might have pushed it away as far as you can get it away from you. And you hear this and it makes you kind of roll your eyes. But it is really, really, really important, now more than ever, when the binary choice that you have in the leadership that you select to represent you in government, make sure that those people clearly understand that they do not gain the authority to remove your rights from you should they find themselves in that position of representative power. And there will be people pulling their hair out about what Heidi said there about, can you believe these Christian nationalists? This is not new information. They're more bold in what they're saying, but I think that's because they're getting a little more frightened at what the potential outcome is. Usually this kind of sentiment and emotion and spirit comes out when it gets agitated, when it gets frustrated, when it gets annoyed. The closer you get to the truth, the louder that opposition becomes, and it finds its way out into the open. It gives people like me an opportunity to come on here and insult her if I so choose, or to run her down if I so choose. What I say to you is just don't forget the conversation that originates with the idea that we hold these truths to be self-evident. They're saying that this is obvious. It doesn't even need to be written into being because it is evident within itself that all men are created equal. I'd like to hear them go in on that part. That they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No guarantee of happiness there, but definitely your ability to pursue it. Those do come from God. They come from a creator. Whomever you believe that creator to be, they sure as heck don't come from the government. And the second that the American people get behind this line of thinking and start thinking, yeah, you know what, the government does get to fortify and support these rights that Americans get to have, then they get to manage them. They get to control them. They get to limit them. They get to regulate them. They get to take them. It's not a new sentiment. It's actually just kind of amazing that they're being so bold to say it out loud the way they are right now. And this isn't an instance where government has expanded as big as it's ever been in my lifetime, for sure. I can't imagine a time where government has been bigger than it is right now. And they can't even manage their own budget. I'm going to go visit Washington, D.C. on a specific budget where I know to the penny exactly what I have to find, what I have to raise, what I have to fund in order to make it so that my son and myself can go be on this trip, along with the class and all the other families that are going along, or parents. There's one chaperone, and I have my obligation, and I know my obligation. It'd be interesting to see some of these kids, after doing all this fundraising, teach some of the people in Washington, D.C. a little bit about budgeting.